Let's talk about political party primaries. And joining us in the studio this morning is two people representing two political parties and election boards of those political parties. Umi Bashir is the vice chairperson of the National Elections Board of UDA. Fred Okango is the secretary of political affairs of KANU and is also in the National Elections Board. Umi and Fred, thank you very much for joining us. Karibu to the Situation Room.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
You both occupy the hot seat. And we're going to be discussing your political parties and whether you're promoting democracy or whether you are rewarding loyalties in the name of dishing out this political party primary nomination certificates. So we've seen it in the news. We saw over the weekend, for example, Umi, UDA announcing that you have arrived at some consensus on those who are seeking the nomination certificates for, say, Nairobi, where Johnson Sakaja will run as the UDA and then also Kenya Kwanza candidate for Nairobi as governor, Bishop Margaret Wanjiru as senator, and the woman rep is Millicent Omanga. And this is after conversations that took place behind the back room. You're allowed to do so by law, but what makes you determine where you want to have conversations and where you want to subject people to a nomination exercise?
Great. Thank you for having me. Eric, first of all, it's good to note that all political parties in Kenya and also globally have are more or less like a members club where the rules and regulations that, guide the party or the club. For us, we are guided by our constitution. And of course, you have to be a member of our party to actually follow those rules. So we have Article 31 in our constitution, which guides us on how to go about our nominations. We have the universal suffrage, we have the electoral college, and we also have what we call the automatic nominations. We don't have indirect nominations. So for us, the board, the National Election Board, is also the main body that deals with nominations, elections. So whatever the board deems fit is what we go by as a party in terms of nominations. And for us, what you call it negotiated democracy, but we call it, it's more of it's a consensus, like a democratic consensus. That's what we call it. For what happened the other day with Sakaja and team, you see, first of all, I'll not rewrite what happened the other day. We also, the presser, you had the speeches, everyone spoke. And these negotiations took place way before they were aired in Karen. Karen at the DP's office is more of from an optics angle. What happens is this is done, a lot of negotiations are done behind the curtains. And by the time they're getting to the DP and he's publicly announcing them, it shows that actually with all the aspirants present, it shows that they have accepted, they've sat down and they have seen that this is the right way to go. And for us as a party, we want to bag all the seats. And for us to do that, the more we don't compete within ourselves, the better. For Kenya Kwanza, people from other parties to come on board and decide, this is the right way to go, is big. For instance, Sakaja first of all came from Jubilee and went directly directly to UDA. He's never been part of ANC. He's never been a member of ANC. Just because he's working or he's friends with Musalia, it's like saying Ruto works with Musalia, so is Ruto, a member of ANC? So this aspect of him being part of ANC, then he's jumping ship, and now he's in UDA is neither here nor there. So for us, we want to win in every electoral seat across the country. So
you're seeking the best way to get your best candidates on the positions. Fred, is this the same thing that's happening in KANU? Is KANU having this consensus negotiated democracy conversations?
Thank you, Latif. First of all, I want to make it clear that for us, our party is not a members club. It's a national party, but that first is guided by the Constitution of Kenya, secondly, the PPA, and thirdly, the party constitution. And therein there is the nomination rules as far as elections are concerned. Number two, our nomination rules that were received by the Registrar of Political Parties and IEBC, in Article 14 of those rules, says clearly that in the event that there are more than two aspirants going for the same position, then there are three methods of identifying a suitable and capable candidate. Number one, we start by building consensus. Number two, we take those aspirants through interviews or polling. Number three, if those fail, then we shall subject them to a free, fair, and democratic nomination. If you look at the amended Act of the Political Parties Act, there are only two ways of subjecting these aspirants to a nomination. And one of them is direct nomination, where you do the election before the election. Number two is the indirect nomination, where the delegates who are members of the party shall participate in identifying that candidate. And for us, as we are sitting here today, our teams have been conducted consensus. But we have identified, I think, around 10, 11 areas that consensus and interviews have failed. And because we are a party that is governed by the philosophy of peace, love, and unity, we don't want to subject our candidates to that chaotic nomination process that we have witnessed before. So we shall proceed and allow them to participate in a free, fair, and democratic process of identifying them. That will start on 15th all the way to 18th. It is coming.
So nobody has been given nomination
Not at all.
certificates?
Not at all. In fact, we have only identified candidates through consensus. Those are the candidates in KANU that have been issued with what's called a clearance certificate, not nomination certificate. Clearance certificate means you have met all the qualifications required to run for that particular seat. And those certificates are not a guarantee that you have the nomination certificate, because majority of the aspirants who have received those clearance certificate, they have passed chapter 6, they are suitable enough, they have passed the HELB clearance form, police clearance form, and all those things that are required. Now on 15th, we shall be going back to the discussions that we had, the consensus discussion, the polling discussions, now to issue nomination certificates that they are going to present before the electoral body to participate. And in the 11, 12 areas that I've identified where we have not issued clearance certificate, because we must first of all ascertain who are these people that we are going to subject through a free, fair, and democratic nomination. So we have a process that will end on 18th, but as it is now, none of our candidates or aspirants for that matter has been issued with a nomination certificate.
Does your constitution have any consideration for direct nominations?
Our constitution states that there is established a national election nomination board. And the National Election Nomination Board has formulated nomination rules which have been received by IEBC and Registrar of Political Parties. And in that nomination rule, there's a provision for giving automatic nomination to people who, first of all, one of them is the national chair of election board, if he or she wishes to run. Number two, party loyalty. Those who have demonstrated without a doubt that they have stood with the party, they are loyal to the party, and they have subscribed to the values and principles of the party, then those can receive. But because we are in a democracy, today, even our SG, our own SG, who is a loyal member of the party and has served this party for the longest, is going to be cleared the same process.
Is this a roundabout way of basically saying that there are some areas where there are candidates who are not being challenged? They have the clearance certificate. You clearly know that there's nobody else who is seeking a KANU certificate or nomination for this particular slot in this particular area. You're just not giving them the nomination certificate yet, but you know.
Well, we have such areas where there's no one being challenged. They're the sole, aspirants. But the process requires that it must be free and fair. If anything, it must be seen to be fair.
Okay.
So the first process is you must give them the clearance certificate to show that they have complied with all the provisions of law, with all the requirements that ascertain to that position. Number two, we shall now go into the next stage of now issuing them with the nomination certificate. If indeed there's no one, then for sure they'll get the nomination certificate. But if indeed there's someone, then the process of building consensus is ongoing. We have a team in Kisumu this morning. We
so
have a team in
consensus
Homabay.
is still an open option.
Exactly.
Not necessarily
Actually, we
saying
do encourage consensus. We do encourage consensus.
Is that the preferred? Because now what we're saying, I think one of the things that you talked about is having a free and fair party, right? Is that one of the preferred ways then to say, look, if we have two individuals within party who have met all these clearances that you're speaking of, and then they say, well, we're going to duke it out one to the other. This consensus building, whom does it involve? And then how do you reach the end? Because at the end of the day, you want to remain fair and free within party.
The consensus building involve the aspirants and the National Elections Board that is mandated to carry that exercise without fear or favor. Now, in building consensus, you bring the more than two aspirants to a table and demonstrate to them that it is in the interest of the party and in their own interest to have one of them fly the flag of the party. That is what it involves. But a lot of times you realize that consensus fails because politicians are ambitious. Everyone believes. Today, if I ask you, if you're two politicians, who among you do you think, or who between you do you think is more popular than the other? All of them will say, I'm rated highly. So you are likely to use other methods. And that's why I started by saying, if the consensus fails, then we produce the polls. If the polls fail through a research, then we have to subject them through a nomination process. And I've identified the only two methods. For us, we shall not go for the direct nomination, which is the election before the election. We encourage delegates, which is the selection, because therein you bring delegates who are party members from that region and they decide for themselves who they would want to represent them. It is a better way than a nomination that somebody will still run to the tribunal and say, I was defeated unfairly.
Or go independent.
Umi, does your party also have...
Independent. I don't encourage. In fact, for us, we have advised our candidates or other aspirants, because you have shown and demonstrated that you'd want to participate in the party nomination, what we used to call before the amendment primaries, you have no time to run as independent. Why? When you subjected your details on 26th of March, which is the deadline, to the register of political parties, you identified yourself with the party, and therefore you believe in the party. If you are to go for independent, the window is very short. You must go and look for a symbol. It must be cleared. It must be approved. Their deadline is somewhere around 8th of May, which is next month. It will be a shorter time.
I want to ask you a different question, but let me ask Umi first. Umi, does your party also have an accommodation for direct nominations?
We have what we call automatic nominations. That basically means where there's no competition, where there are no two aspirants in a particular electoral seat going for a particular electoral seat, then automatically we have one person who we will issue the certificate to. But in politics, it's always good to learn from your mistakes, but it's even wiser to learn from your opponent's mistakes. I'll go back to 2017, where a place like Langata, NASA had about 4 aspirants going for that seat. Jubilee, on the other hand, had only 1 person. And you see what happened. So for us, we encourage consensus because we want to win. The whole point of this is to ensure that we bag as many seats as possible. And for us to do that is to encourage consensus, to encourage, negotiations wherever it fit. Places like Northeastern, we're not even having nominations there, our primaries, because they sit under a tree and they decide. The community decides. This is the way we're going to go. And it has proven to be effective because now it's being used by political parties all over the country. So we take that example from Northeastern, where I come from, and another issue is the universal suffrage. You see, that is what we're going to do now, come the 14th. Our elections will only be one day, and we're going to do it one day because we are more than confident. We are ready. We keep repeating these free and fair nominations. We're going to be free, we're going to be fair. But this time round, UDA is more than ready to prove that, to implement that. So,
let me ask you, Omi. So who initiates this consensus exercise? Is it the candidates or is it the elections board? For example, who decides, all right, so we can see there's more than one candidate here seeking the certificate for governor. We want to have a conversation. Who initiates this process?
Usually, the parties themselves, there's a mediator, there's a third party within the aspirants who encourages mediation, consensus. But as a board, we have what we call our scientific polls. So we see the polls. We see who is doing great, who is lacking behind. And as I said earlier, our intention is to win. So our constitution encourages that the board does whatever it deems fit to ensure that we back the seats. So we are actually currently almost done with our interviews. We have interviews where we call the aspirants. And if there are 3 or 4 more aspirants in a particular electoral seat, we call them, we interview them, and we see if we can, get to an agreement where the more, stronger party supports the other. And we don't coerce. There's no coercion. It's basically an encouragement. And once they agree is when now we move forward. They sign a consensus form and they go to to publicly to announce that we have actually decided to support so and so because we feel like for us to win, we have to be united.
Political parties are institutions of democracy. But by their very existence and by the constitutions that guide the processes that they go through, are they really democratic? Because when you say consensus, you automatically remove universal suffrage, which you mentioned. Because you're not going to tell me the entire membership of your political party is involved in that consensus. Who is involved in that consensus?
It's the candidates.
Yes.
And the party officials.
Precisely.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's a closed meeting. It's not as though the entire membership sits there listening to the discussions that they are going through so that they can know, okay, this is what they agreed. The discussion's held, then they're told this is what we've agreed on.
But maybe that's democracy because the parties involved at this particular point, the competing parties, are sitting down and agreeing on how to move.
Yes.
The point I'm actually trying to make is that political parties are not necessarily democratic institutions. That's really what I'm trying to say. So I am often at a loss as to why the Kenyan politicians are at such pains to try and present institutions which in and of themselves don't even need to be democratic as democratic institutions. Why?
City, you can also look at it from the other side. Politics is not a matter of democracy alone. Politics is about competition. And when you're competing, you produce your best. So the processes of arriving at your best so that you win this seat is what matters most today to political parties. Now, consensus as the first step of identifying the competitors has been encouraged. And it has been encouraged because it involves all the parties, or rather all the aspirants that are going to run. If that fails, there's another step. If that fails too, there's another step. The last step, what we would call the land of the last resort, would be subject these candidates or these aspirants to the ballot, let the registered party members decide who among them is the best, who among them is suitable and capable. And therefore, democracy is a process, it's not an event. So if you look at what political parties are doing today, because we're in competition, competition comes first, democracy comes second. Today, I can tell you, UDA, they would want to win this seat, as they're saying. KANU, they would want to win this seat, as we are saying. But that seat will only be won by one person. there'll be only one senator of Nairobi, one senator of Homa Bay, one governor of each county. So what we need to do, and for us in KANU, we have made it deliberate, that we shall arrive at a candidate that is suitable, competent, and capable through a consensus first. If that fails, we subject them through interview. If that fails, we subject them through a nomination process. And in our nomination process, we shall not just take them to the ballot and allow people to vote. No, we shall invite delegates from their regions where they want to run, who shall participate in identifying them.
So you're saying
Then
the end goal is to put forth a candidate that is the best choice for the party to go and compete then externally. Is that what you're saying?
Of course, through a process that is acceptable.
If I put it to you that this process is a charade, meaning, yes, for purposes of discussion, that political parties are engaging us in this elaborate process which they explain very elaborately about what they're going to do. They'll move right, but before they move right, they're going to stand upright. Then they'll move left. When they move left, then they'll get this group of people with whom they will discuss this. And yet they are
saying it's just, cream on the cake, etc. You know who you want to be in those
But
positions.
to what end?
Really?
Let's respond to that question after the break. Because to what end? If you just chose Ndu to go for this particular exercise, and then the people reject Ndu, you stand to lose. But that's the conversation that we're having. Is it negotiated democracy? Is it a charade, like City is saying? Is it a process where you are arriving at the best candidate and then going to have the best leaders in the country and the political parties winning the most seats? Is this what we are seeing, or is it all a game? The owner of the party wants to reward the loyalists of the party and subjecting us through the whole game. That's the conversation we are having. Ubi Bashir is the vice chairperson of the National Elections Board of UDA, and Fred Okango is the secretary of political affairs in KANU, who is also in the National Elections Board. This is Kenya's biggest conversation on KTN Home, on SpiceFM, and online. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation. We are talking about political party primaries and the process that the political parties are using to get to a point of issuing nomination certificates for various seats. Now, we are hearing from both parties this morning that the issue of consensus is primary and it's important because, like you have said, you want to win. So you want to present the best and strongest candidate. Now, Ndu, ask that question that you had asked again.
How do we know that this is the process we're talking about? I mean, with the optics and perceptions, is it not that you already have somebody in mind, in line, and we're going through this consensus and negotiating process to make it look dressed and nice, but you already knew from the very beginning who you want to be in that position?
Not really. For UDA, first of all, we live up to the letter D in our abbreviation, democracy. We do not sit somewhere in a boardroom and decide, you know what, we want aspirant A to get the ticket. We are not dictators in any way. So our party uses the scientific polls. This is what instigates this whole process. We do not have a preferred candidate. As NEB vice chair lady, there's no point and time that we have had a meeting and decided, you know what, this person is this is the person we want. So we have to ensure that we get to give the ticket to this particular aspirant. The ground says a lot. For an aspirant, you have to go to the ground as a politician and ensure that you've, won the hearts of the residents and you have won the hearts of the voters. For you to do that, you have to actually go to the ground. So the polls will automatically tell us the results that you are getting from the ground. On the other hand, the results will also tell us that you're doing this basically you're very weak. So for us to front a candidate come the 9th of August, that is like you're digging your own grave. Why should we do that? Our intention is to win. So,
but then, Umi, okay, there are areas where UDA knows that it's strong, that a candidate that gets the UDA certificate is likely to emerge the winner. There are those areas. And those areas, you also know that you have very many strong candidates who are seeking the party nomination ticket. And so you could drag it along in terms of saying, yeah, we are not going to have this exercise yet, the consensus yet, just buying time to close the window that Fred reminded us of, the time to jump from party to go into an independent. So on the final day, you say, okay, so let's have consensus. We shall give a certificate to so-and-so. And that knocks out the other candidates from jumping ship. So in the end, you shall tell us, oh, it was a scientific poll, which you know how it was conducted. Oh, it was, we listened to the ground. Oh, but then you end up giving, is that likely that you end up giving a candidate of the party leader's choice?
No. That is not going to happen. First of all, we keep singing and saying that, we are going to have free and fair nominations. We are actually implementing that as a board, because at no point does, first of all, our party leader is not a member of the National Election Board. He is, yes, he's our flag bearer, he is a visionary bearer, but aside from that, he does not interfere in any way with the work of the National Election Board. For him is to come in from an optics angle where now the aspirants have decided and they have made up their mind that, they have sat down and decided this is the person we are going to support. In our strongholds, we are going the whole 9 yards. We are going to have the primaries, and whoever wins will now represent us come 9th August. So where we're having consensus is not in any way coerced. It's not in any way, forced down the aspirant's throat and told, what, this is the person you prefer. Sometimes communities and aspirants come with their own people and they say, what, we have sat down as a tribe and we've decided that we want this lineup for us to win as a party. So this is our decision. So we welcome that with both hands. Another thing that is wise to also note is that the UDA nominations has actually attracted a lot of interest. We have 30 international observers who will be coming to observe our primaries. And for international bodies to actually have interest in party primaries is a big step for us, because UDA is a new party. We all know that. UDA just started about a year ago, and right now where we are, we're close to 8 million members, and that is big, because UDA is the government in waiting. Let's be real. Come elections, come August, we are going to take the government, and for us to do that, we have to implement what we're talking about: free and fair. And that is why the international observers are actually here. They're interested because they know once we come in, they need to witness that democracy that we keep singing about.
Umi, international observers can be invited also. It's not as though they're sitting somewhere waiting to come. I understand what you're saying, but it doesn't ring true to the politics of this country, the way our politics functions. There is no party where the party leader is part of the electoral board. None. If there's a party where the leader is a member of the electoral board, tell me one.
I agree. Majority of the parties.
No, is there a party where the party leader is part of the electoral board?
I wouldn't tell you that expressly.
UDA,
yes.
We do not have the party leader as member of
and
the
I'm saying
election.
all the parties that we have.
Neither is the KANU chairman a member of the elections.
No.
Exactly.
Senator Gideon Moy is not.
Yes.
But there's
But does he have influence? Yes.
I don't think so.
Not really.
I don't think so.
Oh.
For us in KANU, Senator
The
Gideon
chairman
Moy,
doesn't have influence.
who is the national chair
So you're
of
hearing
the
it
party,
from the horse's mouth.
I am
has
listening
no
to it, and I'm going to hold him
influence.
account to what he's saying.
just hold on, City. Senator Gideon Moy is the national chair of KANU, has no influence over National Elections Board, because that board is established by the constitution of the party that everyone, promises to uphold and respect, and therefore they do their job independently. And that's why when KANU invite applicants to run on the party ticket, they come in droves and they are subjected through the same process. If today Senator Gideon Moy was running, he would be subjected through the same process. He would be. And now, City started by giving us a very good, proverb. Yes, the elephant never gets tired of carrying its task. The politicians are the elephants here. Their task is heavy of identifying these candidates. And we cannot call it a charade or, negotiated. We can only call it a process that demands action. Our action as political parties is to identify these candidates. I have seen situations where, for example, for us in KANU, we have fielded many we are going to field many candidates in the northern part of Kenya, Wajir, Garissa, Isiolo, many of them. And in those areas, in fact, it didn't even take us a day because the community themselves there had identified whom they think will lead them through their own consensus that did not involve the party. When they came to the party headquarters 3 weeks ago, they presented names and say, out of the 10 that showed interest in running on a KANU ticket, we have narrowed down to 2 whom we believe that the party can now help us using their mechanism to identify the best. In that room where we were seated, I was seated there, we arrived at one of them in each of those 4 or 5 counties. So to me, I think even the public are becoming wiser. They are saying, because we know the value of leadership, we know the value of representation, and they are alive to the fact that the general principles of electoral system require that that process must be fair and free. They start that free and fairness from the word go at the community level. When they bring it to the party, then the party enhances it using the instruments that are within the party. So for us, we believe that in this election, as we wouldn't say that we are going to take government, we would say we are going to form the next government. Because you see, we have participated in elections before. But in this coming election, we have also seen that the role that KANU is going to play, particularly in fielding candidates where we have seen that we are stronger, is going to be an important aspect of the government formation, because we shall have representatives that will speak to the core issues of the people of Kenya. That process has started now.
I want to come back to that issue you've talked about, that the individuals then that come into this consensus room, because from what you've said, the process almost ends in that room. It starts at the community level, that these people who have offered themselves up are people who have been spoken for by the community. Is that what you're saying? That you present these people to the community and
They
say,
have been
look at what they say.
identified by the community.
So
not
you
spoken
are
to
so
by
the
community.
party works on individuals who have been identified and presented by the community
And shown interest to run on the party ticket.
Okay.
Not just any other person.
So the party is taking people that have been presented by the community and not their own selection.
No. The party doesn't do selection. The party waits for people to come. And that's why the law requires that you publish a nomination notice to invite people to run on your ticket. When you do that, people show interest. And when they show interest, in the northern part where Umi comes from, she'll tell you most of the negotiations are done by the community level, Council of Elders. Once those Council of Elders identify the people that they would want, or rather the people go to them and say, Council, these are the people that would want to, or as we are the people that want to run on KANU ticket, they come to the party because it is the party that will clear them.
It almost sounds like what you're saying is that delegates process. Delegates of the party in Isiolo sit together and they identify their candidates, and then they come to you. But that's not what you're saying. You're saying it's a community that does that. So community leaders, you see, it's the same community. One community, same leaders. Leaders come with a preferred candidate to Umi and say, we prefer so-and-so. Umi at UDA says, community has spoken. Same leaders come to KANU and say, we prefer so-and-so as our chosen candidate. Fred and KANU listen to community, take. Is it the same elders who are going to all these parties?
But remember, let me just say, but remember, Latif, those community members or those council of elders, they are not necessarily members of KANU. They are leaders in their own right in that community.
And that's what
and
I'm
when
asking.
they identify the people, it is the people who have gone to them and say, for us, me, Abdi, I would want to run on a party ticket called
That's
KANU
what
because
question
KANU
actually,
is stronger here.
My question is, how do you know that these are legitimate community leaders who are coming to you?
Thank
Let
Because
me tell you,
community
for
lead-
example,
a
okay,
community
go.
has the same leaders. If those leaders are going to UDA and the same leaders are going to KANU and the
Yeah.
same leaders are going to Jubilee, with how do we trust which leaders
If
are
I may,
genuine?
if I may, I personally come from Northeastern. I come from Wajir County. KANU has already issued certificates for place like Wajir East MP. It has issued certificates for Wajir Township MCA. You see, for us, we have not even printed our certificates. We don't even know how our certificates will look like. When a community
That's not
comes
true.
as a... I come from there. I have seen your
I am a member of KANU.
Anyway,
That's not
moving
true.
on.
So those are fake.
Moving on, are you saying
Maybe
that
they
they're
issued
fake?
themselves. We don't
Can
know.
we let Umi finish what she said?
If I may.
Yes.
So for us, UDA, the whole community, and if you look at our social media pages or even the Deputy President's social media, you will see that when I speak of a community endorsing a certain person to be the flag bearer of a certain electoral seat in our community, it is the whole community that comes and stands by this particular person. On the other hand, I've seen parties that speak of negotiated democracy and a community supporting, and this aspirant walks in to a political party office alone, or with 2 or 3, his wife or his daughter or his son. You see, that is not a community. It's not a community, led negotiation. It is
So
a
how do you
personal
identify, Umi, how do you identify that the elders who are coming to UDA are the actual true community elders that are representing the community and not playing a political game?
Good question, Eric. This, for us, for instance, for UDA, is the community chairman. We have a chairman. We have, for instance, an OSC chairman. We have a deputy chairman. We have a women leader who all support and come with this candidate. On the other hand, the same, because a community is led by the chairman, the deputy chair of the tribes, the clans, the sub-clans, they all come together with their candidate to now, for instance, the party headquarters or even the deputy president, where now, for instance, I'm talking for UDA. But on the other side, the same chairman cannot again go and hold the hand of the aspirant to another party. It's ridiculous. So what happens is they support a particular person, they stand by it, and they all go as a united front.
How do they decide to go to UDA and not KANU?
They have meetings, and they have meetings under trees, and they actually decide and see the values and the visions of that particular party, because every aspirant has a preferred political party that they want to contest on. But it is the community that decides, you know what, our votes are this much, 100,000. And for us to get something out of this government that is going to come in, we will go with this particular party.
Let me understand this. Northeastern, you have clans, all right? So by the time, let's say we're talking about the seat of the governor, all right? Each clan will have their interests. At what point do you get to a point where these clans arrive at a consensus so that they actually agree and say, or are we saying that we look at the regions and the members of parliament, for instance, their representation is mainly clannish. So that one, the clan getting together to decide, one can actually see. But even within clans, there are sub-clans and their families. It's an intricate web. And the negotiations that take place are also intricate.
Yeah.
Now, help me understand. How do you get consensus, let's say, at a county level, where there are all these clans, with all their diverse interests, determining we are going to support this party as opposed to this party? Because I see a situation where there'll be diversity, but please explain to me.
What happens is that we look at the tyranny of the majority and the tyranny of the minority. And for a particular community to actually win a particular seat, what happens is, for instance, a governor lineup, the county lineup, a governor will come from a different clan. The deputy governor will come from a different clan.
It's negotiated.
Yes, it is negotiated. So your chairman from your particular tribe will come and sit down with this chairman of a particular tribe. So they reach a consensus.
Clan.
Yes, that's the thing.
You
You
said tribe, I'm calling it a clan.
Yeah, but it's
Yes.
all over the country. Look at, if you go to Nyamira, we have the Kuria. The same applies. They're a minority, so what happens? They're brought on board and they're given a certain...
Kuria in Migori.
Korea in Migori,
Yes,
not
Migori.
But just
Yes.
carry on, yes?
Yes.
No, I like what you're saying. You see, what you're describing, Umi, is now the reality of our politics. Okay? And that's what I was questioning when we're talking about this democratic process that you two are explaining to us in great detail. Even where you don't have clans or we have tribes, it is the same thing that happens. And are they coalescing around the leaders primarily, or are they coalescing around the political leader primarily? And so when you then tell us that these people don't have power because they're not in the electoral board, I am saying it is not true.
But
Because these political leaders, by and large, in our system, are the people who the individuals coalesce around. You know why? The party is identified by them.
City, let me just make a contribution on what you've said. You see, for us, our candidates who probably are in whatever part of the country, what attracts them to KANU is what Eric asked. What attracts them to our party is the philosophy, the principles and values that we stand for as a party. That's what attracts them. And particularly, if I may talk about our candidates, many of them in thousands who are in northern part of Kenya, the issues in those areas has been issues of devolution, where they feel that they've been forgotten. Our party is back to business. And we have said, for us to ensure that we secure the lives of the people in the northern area, there are certain concessions that we must make. There are certain provisions that we must do. One of them is to adopt those areas as unit of development.
Fred, I have to interrupt you here. I have to interrupt you.
I don't know.
The party that you belong to, I could argue, was primarily responsible for the marginalization that region faced all these years. So you're telling me that your party has turned over a new leaf and suddenly the ones who are going to provide a solution to problems
I am telling you, and I can
years.
confidently tell you on a national TV
Yes.
that is the truth, because we are talking about KANU fresh. If you want to associate Senator Gideon Moi with former President Moi, then I think, City, you are in a wrong place. But I want to tell you also and remind you.
KANU had
No,
Jomo
City,
Kenyatta first, then Moi
that's
after.
okay. That's
But
fine.
Those people were responsible for their marginalization that northeastern
You
province
see, those
faced
are
all
opinions
years.
that can also be written. But we know politics is local. We are talking about today. The politics of today is about the model of governance that is called devolution. Everyone wants a pie of the cake. Who gets what and how? Our party has been categorical, and we have said we are going to adopt a model for everyone, right from the ward level, and provide the basic needs first to the people of Kenya. And we are saying that in those areas, the issues of water has been a problem. And we are going to provide that. And that is an attraction to KANU, because KANU has demonstrated that through the leadership of KANU, they can actually effect that. That is an attraction. Number two, look at the politics of our national leader, our national chairman. He is not combative. He's a guy who has been very, very modest. He does his politics in a manner that everyone admires him. He doesn't go shouting at his own government. He doesn't go insulting the others. That is an attraction. And that's why you have got thousands of aspirants from that region, as Umi has ably admitted.
How many ward candidates do you expect to have in that northern part
Today?
So we're talking about the counties of Mandera, Wajir, Garissa, Marsabit, Isiolo, Samburu, right?
The ones that are now called aspirants are more than 110 who have shown interest in running the party.
110 for
aspirants,
for what
not
position?
candidates.
For what position?
For the ward position.
For just the ward position.
Yes. And in that we shall
across those
see.
counties.
We shall see in all those counties.
And then for governor
Governor, I think there are 3.
in the counties.
Yes.
How many would you say UDA has attracted so far? Aspirants.
Aspirants for MCAs, it will be 30 in Mandera, 30 in Wajir, 30 in Garissa, Northeastern.
So 120.
That is the MCAs. And for governors, that is close to 15 actually, for governors. So we have a total of almost 897 ward MCAs, basically, who will be going for nominations come Thursday this week.
And you're saying that all those nominations are going to take place one day
Yes.
across the
Except
country.
for Nandi, where we had a sad accident and one of our aspirants passed away. So we moved that nomination to the 19th. But the rest, all over, is on the 14th. We are ready. I mean, we cannot be
How are
going
you
for one
prepared
day
to
if we are
deal-
not ready.
How are you prepared to deal with the fallout? Because we've seen this before. I mean, just like CT is saying, the history of our country is that political party primaries fallout.
Yes.
There is likely to be fallout in terms of just people thinking so and so who's more aligned to the party leader or to the people in the National Elections Board has gotten the certificate.
Yes.
And they rigged themselves into the certificate.
Yes.
How will you deal with the fallout?
Eric, first of all, the law allows us up to the last day for dispute resolution is on the 22nd of this month. And for us, we've scheduled our nominations to be one day so that we have that time, that window for our dispute. We have another committee called the Dispute Resolution Committee, which now sits and
Is that time enough?
yes, it's more than enough. It's more than enough. We have a board of 7, and we are more than prepared to ensure that we reach judgments are delivered before the 22nd, which is the deadline.
Because then that means that, I mean, it's almost inevitable that there will be those who are not happy with the results. So what happens to them is that they have a very quick time, as Fred has said, until the 8th of May to then register as independents, which we've seen is usually the recourse that many people take. Disappointed at the party level, move and go and join as an independent. How will you deal with that, or is it collateral damage for the process?
Yes. So we are trying the much we can to ensure that we don't have any disputes that will come up from our nominations. That's why we advocate for even the consensus and the negotiated democracy, so that there is no disgruntled aspirant who would come after the 14th and say that this has been an unfair process to me. There'll be, of course, the busybodies who are always known in all the political parties who will cause drama, but the genuine ones will definitely abide by the certificate, because we're going to give interim certificates at that level, that constituency and the county level. So by the time someone is coming to the headquarters, they'll be issued now with the real certificate.
Okay. I want to thank both of you for joining us today, and as you go and prepare for the political party primaries to issue the nomination certificates, we will all be watching and seeing, so how is democracy being practiced at party level? Fred Okango, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Fred is a political affairs secretary for KANU, and you say it's KANU fresh.
KANU fresh, and you're saying we're back to business.
Back to business.
Absolutely.
UDA, which has been there, then has rebranded as UDA, been very active in the country in the last 1 year. Umi Bashir is the vice chairperson of the National Elections Board of that political party. Asanteni sana for joining us, as you've talked about the issues that we expect to see with devolution and the national government in the coming years.